John Looker, 1968-69, U.S. Army, 1967 to 1969, 1st Cav Division, B-25.
All right, so can you just tell us a little about what you did when you were in the Army?
I was in what they call the 1st Cav Division, which is a helicopter division, and basically what we did was, I was an infantry soldier, and we spent usually 30 to 45 days out in the field. Most of those days we were in combat, because what they would do is, since we were a helicopter division, they would pick us up whenever there was what they call a firefight, and it was getting hot. They'd pick us up and take us to that particular firefight. Once that one was over, then they would take us to another one that was hot. So we were transported all over the country. We started about at the DMZ, which is in the northern part of Vietnam, and ended up in the A Shau Valley, which is in the southern part of Vietnam. And so from that time on, we would normally get about 3 to 5 days when we get back to a base camp where we could actually relax for a little bit, but most of the time we spent in the field.
How did you prepare for that?
Well, since you're all seniors, I guess you know you're either 17 or 18 right now. I was actually 18 years old when I actually went over there, so if you can imagine trying to prepare yourself for combat, it's not an easy thing to do. I mean, you're coming right off the street. I had 13 weeks of basic training, 13 weeks of what they called AIT, Advanced Infantry Training, and that was my preparation, 26 weeks of training to be able to go over to Vietnam. But I never expected, once I got there, that it was going to be like it was. It was, a lot of times was pretty hairy. So my first night in country, I flew into Cam Ranh Bay, and the first night in country they hit the ammo dump there, and it was like the 4th of July for about 10 hours. Just everything blowing up and all over the place, and I thought, what am I into? And that's where it began. But after you were there about a month, you became, I guess, what they call a hardcore veteran, because it didn't seem to affect you as much, and you weren't quite as afraid or whatever, because you had been there for a little bit and you'd been in combat most of the time, and you learned to adapt to it. So,
were you ever scared?
Yeah, there was quite a few times I was really scared. The night I was wounded, I was shot in the shoulder over there, but I had also received 2 Purple Hearts prior to that for shrapnel wounds. And but the one night that I was really, probably the scaredest I was ever over there was, we were on a mission. We were sitting outside of Cambodia, and our platoon was about 26 people strong, and there was 3 of us that they wanted us to go out by Highway 1 and set up for the evening and count trucks as they came by. So we were going to go into Cambodia, which was, we weren't supposed to be in Cambodia, but we were supposed to go in Cambodia. And we got about 1,000 meters from the Cambodian border, and they called us on the radio and said that they couldn't support us with, if we got in trouble, they couldn't support us. All they could send us was illumination rounds, which wasn't going to do much good. So they told us to pull back. Well, it was getting about dark, so we pulled back into a woods that was a little ways away from Cambodia. And as we were sitting there during the evening, we saw the trucks coming along, and there was probably thousands of them just coming down the highway there that we hadn't seen. And the next thing we heard, with the 3 of us there, was a troop of North Vietnamese coming through the trail there. And they walked within about 6 or 8 feet of us. And I thought for sure that evening we were going to be captured, and I really didn't want to be a prisoner of war, and that's probably the scariest I was over there. And the other time was the night I got shot. When I got shot, it was probably about 4 o'clock in the morning, and again, the base that we were closest to was getting hit that night, so they had to save all the ammunition for that base, and all they could send us was illumination rounds. And we were surrounded by North Vietnamese. They estimated the next day that there was probably between 300 and 400 of them against our 26. And when I got shot at 4 o'clock, they couldn't bring anything in to give us any way out until about 6 o'clock. That's when daylight hit. And so for 2 hours, I kind of laid there with us being surrounded. And we started out in a rice paddy. And we had to move from the rice paddy into a ravine. And there, when we first got to the ravine, there was 3 of them on the other end of the ravine, which was probably...
Did you, other than the Purple Hearts, did you win any other awards?
Combat Infantry Badge, which I'm very proud of. That's for being in a wound. I also have a Bronze Star with 4 stars on it, which means that each one of the stars means that I participated in at least 25 combat battles. So that added up to the time that I was there, 10.5 months, about 100 battles that I had participated in from the time I got there till the time I got out of there. When I got out of there on March the 10th, they actually flew me to Guam, and I spent 3 months in a hospital there, and then came back to the States at Valley Forge and spent 3 months in a hospital there. So.
Do you know what kind of gun or do you remember what kind of guns you used?
I used an M16, and I also carried an M79, which is a grenade launcher. And it's just a small tube grenade launcher that you use. And then the gentleman that actually, Bill Baham was his name, the one that actually saved me, he carried the M16.
What was the food like there?
We didn't have, well, we ate sea rations most of the time, which are the canned rations and stuff. We did get some of the, every once in a while they'd send us in the stuff that you could boil water with, and we used C4 to boil our water with and stuff, and then you could mix it together, and that was pretty good. But like I said, they tried to get us a meal at least once every other couple of days. They'd drop us in a hot meal, and we'd get some water and stuff, but most of the time it was just sea rations, so it wasn't very good. There wasn't a whole lot to brag about, but you got pretty good at making bacon and beans taste good, and the pound cakes.